All right. Happy Friday, everybody.
Happy Friday.
And welcome to the back catalog listening party. My name is Mother Banjo, one of your hosts.
My name is Anthony Ihrig, the other host.
And today we have joining us from New Richmond, Wisconsin, Charisse, and from Minneapolis, Scott of the band JoJo Green.
Hi.
All right.
Oh,
Crowd is
Thank you
going
for having
crazy
us.
today.
Yeah, they
I
are.
know. Man. And
Oh,
it looks
man.
like Linda joining us from New Haven, Connecticut, Connie from Richfield.
Hey, Connie.
And let us know where you are tuned in from. If you're new to the show, this is the show where we invite different guest artists to revisit old records. It's also for us here in Minneapolis, on at least on a Friday. It's happy hour. So we're enjoying some music, some drinks, some conversation. And it's kind of dreary and rainy and meh. So today is I need a little something to warm up my spirit and my body. So I have a little Jim Beam happening.
Oh,
on
that'll
this
do the
Friday.
trick.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
That will do
She's
the
diving
trick.
right in.
I
Yep.
see
It's
Lynn
going to be
is-
that kind of hour. That's what I'm saying.
Lynn is raising their glass of Pinot Grigio in Greenville, South Carolina. Lynn, cheers
Excellent.
to you.
Excellent. And Charisse has a Coke, it looks like. Going to stay caffeinated for the show.
Yeah. Gotta keep my wits about me.
Scott,
right.
looks like you might
Someone
be in a
has to.
vehicle
I'm in
of
a
some
vehicle,
sort. So, what's in that tumbler?
Just water.
Oh,
Just water.
okay.
Staying hydrated.
Wise choice. Yeah.
Very good. Well, I'm
Uh,
staying local, and because it's not technically fall yet, but this time of year is when I like to get the apple cider out, the hard
Ooh.
cider, and so I got a little freewheeler from the Sociable Cider Works, delicious cider in my back catalog listening party pint glass,
Nice.
which should be being sent out to our Patreon members
This
shortly.
week. Yeah. And I made the wise decision not to put my drink in a pint glass.
Oh, that's probably
We can all be
for the
grateful
best.
for that. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Joe is Wiley joining us from Northern Virginia with a margarita. Oh, that
Wow.
sounds nice.
Ooh.
Virginia sounds like the place to be today.
Yeah, and Joe joining us in Minneapolis, keeping company with Bell's Two Hearted IPA. Good choice,
Ooh.
Joe.
Solid choice.
I like that
Oh,
one.
I like that one.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Well,
That
cheers,
one
everyone.
sneaks up on you.
Yes. Cheers to all of you. Thank you for being here. Like Ellen said, this is our weekly musical happy hour, and we love to just, kick back and nerd out about all things music, the writing, the arranging, the recording, and anything in between, all the stories that, we don't get as much anymore without the liner notes of LPs and things like that. So we're so grateful to have Charisse and Scott with us today. And for folks who might not be familiar with JoJo Green, the band, I know the band name has an interesting backstory even. Can you tell us a little bit about how this band formed and where the name comes from and kind of what led up to this album we're going to listen to today?
Oh, wow. Yeah, for sure. So me and Charisse actually used to play in a Pink Floyd tribute cover band that we used to play smaller theaters around the Midwest. So we would spend time on the tour bus just playing guitar and, passing the time, and started showing her some of my songs. And then when that band disbanded, we decided to start an original band, and
Nice.
yeah, started just writing songs. And we were originally called Topaz Riot, but decided to change our name after the quarantine that happened, just to try something fresh when we came out, and came up with JoJo Green. It was actually I had a dog named Maxine Joe Green, so we thought about that, but then we decided that we kind of shortened it and made it flow a little bit better, and so it's actually named after an old bird dog I used to have.
Maxine Joe
Excellent.
Green.
Yeah.
Nice.
I love it.
That's wonderful. Well, from Pink Floyd to how would you describe JoJo Green's music now? Because it's kind of hard to define, and I know no artist really likes to put their music in a box. But how would you describe JoJo Green's music?
I know you're right. It is really hard to define. I know that I've heard you call it roots fusion before, and I like that. Also, we kind of dub it our own little genre, pop fusion. And it's just kind of like a bunch of different kinds of pop, different like American sounds, like jazz, blues, funk, rock and roll, just like a whole bunch of that just melded together in the blender, even like a little bit of country in there too.
Yeah,
Excellent.
Yeah.
So from Pink Floyd to that, which
We crossed the pond.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So definitely staying more in the American roots category, and probably maybe a little lighter on the light shows. Probably is my guess.
Yes, definitely. I mean, I wish that we could still have that light show, but you know.
After previewing this album, I think I could see a light show for sure. And this is your debut album, is that correct?
Yep.
And from what I got from the what I saw on your website and things like this was actually done during the lockdown. Is that correct?
It was. So we actually, some of our very first shows were December of 19 and January of 2020. And so we went into the quarantine lockdown as a new band. And so we were just trying to do anything to stay relevant. We would do Zoom meetings once a week with each other for a couple hours just to talk plans of the future and how we're going to get through this quarantine. And then things started to loosen up a little bit. So we would be able to get together in like smaller groups. And so we just started recording an album just to pass the time, and did, me and the drummer, I was the one that engineered most of it. So I would see everybody, and like the guitar was all recorded in our guitar player's house. All the bass was recorded in my room. And so I think it was like 6 or 7 different studios, and I was the only one that actually saw everybody in the band face to face, because I was like the one recording everybody. And so, yeah, it was just an attempt to stay as relevant as we could and come out of quarantine ready to go. So it was interesting for sure.
Nice. Well, you certainly did. You came out of the gate with quite a record, and I know everybody out there is excited to give it a listen. I know I mentioned this to our Patreon community in an email today that I was feeling a little tired and a little down, and it was kind of gray and rainy and drizzly, and I'm like, oh, let's just put on this record we're going to hear today. And it instantly, brightened up my day and got me moving, and I know it's going to do it for anybody out there, no matter what mood they're in. So I say let's dive into it. And the first track we have lined up is Miles Apart. Is there anything you want to say about that before we give it a listen?
So this was my attempt at I was watching, what was it? It was the Monterey Pop Festival documentary, and the Otis Redding section came on, and I've always loved Otis Redding a lot, but for some reason that night it just got me, and turned off my TV and said, all right, I'm going to do what I can and see how close I can get to an Otis Redding sounding song. And it just kind of came out all in one sitting. The lyrics are very just, falling in love with somebody that's not in love with you, and just having to figure that all out. It's kind of where it comes from. So
excellent. All right, well, let's give it a spin. Happy Friday, everybody. This is JoJo Green, Miles Apart, here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
That I gave to you, I just don't know
Yeah, JoJo Green here on the back catalog listening party with Miles Apart from their 2021 release, The Line, which we're revisiting today on the show, live with Scott and Charisse from the band. And if you joined us at the top of the show, you know, apparently they recorded this in pieces, which is mind blowing because it just sounds so live.
Yeah,
Really
the energy
great.
is there. You captured it.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, it was an interesting way to record an album. Done a lot of recording, and this was the first time where it actually worked out that way. And we had no idea if it was going to work or if it wasn't going to work when we started the project. So when we finally got to the end of the recording part of it, it was just like, oh my God, we made it. We did it.
Quite a feat, though, to kind of to pull that off with you know, everybody at home at the time, and it, like, you know, it really does have that live feel, and people were loving it out there. Lynn was dancing within the first few measures,
Yeah.
and Alinda said, "Love the beat and the sound," and Joe chimed in saying, "Otis, you got it." When I first listened to this, I was feeling Aretha on Respect. Now give me the Wilson Pickett cut. So,
Yeah.
Oh, I love that Muscle Shoals sound for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'd be curious, given that you incorporate a lot of different styles into your music, as we were talking about earlier, and people will hear as we explore more tracks from the record. What do you, because I know you play a lot around the Midwest, and there's a lot of you. I don't know if you all travel together in a van or if you're all in separate cars, but when you travel together, are there, is there a lot of fighting about what kind of music to listen to?
No,
Or is there
Scott is the driver and Scott is the DJ. So
True,
I
driver
try.
gets to choose. That makes sense.
Yeah. I try and keep everybody entertained. I won't throw too much at them. That's you know, some of my stuff that people might not like, but you know,
I like it. You play a lot. He plays a lot of Fish. That's like on Sirius XM, the Fish station, which we all really enjoy. You can kind of hear some of that in some of his writing too. And then also I know that we've done the Beatles channel as well too.
Crowd pleaser. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
definitely a
I was
crowd
hearing
pleaser.
a lot of different influences in there. In fact, it's funny. Like, I'd listened to that earlier, and I hadn't tracked where, like, kind of there was when you were doing this, Charisse, you were doing this vocal stuff in the background, and I'm like, I couldn't place what it kind of reminded me of, and then I thought of this old Pink Floyd record with the background. I was like, that was it. So when you mentioned that you were in a Pink Floyd, I wouldn't have even connected that dot otherwise. But
yeah, I was like, we did play that in that band. We played Great Gig in the Sky.
Yeah, maybe that's what I was thinking of.
I learned how to sing that song, and I was like, that is a really hard skill set, and I'm going to use it in this band. Dang it! Like, I'm going to use it. It took a long time to get that down, but it's a combination of like Ann Wilson and Axl Rose and Robert Plant kind of all together.
Nice.
And basically, just kind of what I do is I bring the voice up into my soft palate, which is really, really high, like positioned really, really high up. And then I kind of roll it like I'm not going to do it right now. It's too loud. And then bounce it off my teeth. And that's how it goes out like that.
Fascinating. Well, super powerful. And that's awesome. I love that combination that you mentioned there.
Ann Wilson, Axl Rose, and who was the third one?
Robert Plant.
Robert Plant. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. That's
Well, I
great.
used to stand and watch her just completely take down 500-seat theaters with Great Gig in the Sky, where every single person's jaw was on the ground as they're watching. So it was a good way it was a good beginning for this. That's for sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
I love it. And and you know, kind of thinking about what you're doing during this, are you on keys? Is that right, Charisse? You're a keyboard player, and Scott, you're bass. Is that correct?
I play bass. Yep.
So can you just briefly kind of run down the rest of the ensemble on this record?
Yeah. So we have Connor Allen, who plays all the guitars. He does some backing vocals on this album. We have Nancy Long as our drummer. And then this album actually has Anna Doby on sax, who is our original sax player. She plays with a band called Rebecca, which was kind of her baby. So once that started taking off, she had to put her time into that. And so we replaced her with a gentleman named Zach Miller, who plays with Transit Authority, and just he's filled in for Mae Simpson. He's a wonderful sax player. So we got really lucky. But on the recordings, it's all Ann Adobe plays sax, and she's just a phenomenal sax player. So
That sounds so good.
Yeah. Really good.
Mhm.
And we would love to hear any of your thoughts, questions. Throw them in the comments if you have any questions for Charisse or Scott about this record. We are revisiting The Line with them today. And I just need more music.
Yep.
Yeah, bring it on. Bring it
Because
on.
Yeah.
that's just the week it's been. So
And
I
this-
hope that's okay.
The next track we have lined up is not just any track. It looks like it is maybe a reference to the title track, and it's epic. I gave it a spin earlier today. I'd love to hear anything you have to say about this one before we take a listen.
This is my attempt. I keep saying my attempt. This is my. So I like
This
you
is
said.
baby.
I'm a big fan of I like Fish and the Grateful Dead. I've always been really big fans of them, and Pink Floyd also does it. These long songs that are multi-movement songs that tend to flow through different parts. I believe this one I did where you end on a certain note and then you stop and then you start writing another part using that note as the beginning note, and then not using the former section to any way other than the starting note that section ended on, which I've always kind of liked to do. I think it's fun to try and throw different things and make them all flow as best they can. But yeah, it's more of a multi-piece. I think there's 4 parts to the song, and just it's all we wrote it all out, and it's a real fun one to play. It's one of my favorite ones to play live for sure.
Yeah, actually, this song was actually the only song on the album where we did actually track live together.
Yes.
It was the very last song that we recorded, and we went to River Rock Studios in Minneapolis, and we kind of all positioned ourselves in different rooms and areas of the live room and stuff, and we just kind of went for it. And I like to tell this story, but we're sitting there, and Connor was sitting in a chair, and he goes, "Watch, we'll get it on the first take," right? And we all started laughing, and then we got it on the first take. We tried to do like 2-3 more takes, but they just weren't like as good as the first one. So I like to brag about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Especially having not played together as much during the pandemic. I mean, it's not like I bet if you went into the studio now, you guys are playing a lot live and you're pretty locked in. But that was a time where you're like, any time you got together to play was like a big deal. So that is a pretty amazing feat.
Yeah, it was magical.
That's great, and it's just a great setup too. So everybody who's listening now can imagine you all in the studio. First take magic. It's a very special thing for musicians. Like I said earlier, this one is epic. So make sure you get your headphones on nice and tight so you can hear all the details, and turn your speakers up. This is JoJo Green on the Line here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
disappearing to the lies we tell each other daily. If you hold me tight, I might make it through the night. Tomorrow I will get back on the
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, the crowds have spoken. I mean, you saw the comments coming in, and Matt Winters says, sounding good in the Southern Hemisphere. Matt, you'll have to let us know where you're tuned in from today. But I will say, good news is it's sounding good everywhere. And the sun came out. I think JoJo Green made it happen because it's been rainy and depressing all day here in the Twin Cities. And as you can see by the sunshine coming in through our windows in Minnesota and Wisconsin, I think that was the power of music right there. So,
I gotta say though, I'm about maybe 40 minutes behind you for weather, so I'm still a little gray here. But you're giving me hope. You're giving me hope.
It's headed your way. And Joni says she says she loves this like 70s vibe to these transitions. And I was thinking the same thing. I also heard some like almost King Crimson-y kind of vibes in there.
Yep.
Like especially those like psychedelic organs and kind of like the cacophonous sounds in there. Just really really cool stuff.
I've heard King Crimson before, and I like that. I like that a lot. I think that's super
excellent.
Yeah.
Well, I also was thinking maybe it was going into that fourth part, real musical theater vibes, like very theatrical. And all I could think of was, I want to hear JoJo Green's rock opera.
Yeah, that's on the list, right?
Yeah.
It
would be epic.
Yes.
It would. This title, we used to joke and call it the Opus. So we would even say that like on stage and stuff too. Let's do the Opus. Buckle up. We're going to do the Opus.
Excellent.
So, this is actually my first experience, this song specifically, doing original music that's more like progressive instead of like singer-songwritery. Mm-hmm. So I remember when I was first learning it, I was just like, I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. But I would keep going with it. And we were in one of Scott's friends' garages, and he handed me a piece of paper with the lyrics for the On the Line section. He's like, okay, sing this for me like this. And I was sitting there and I was going, oh, this is really cool. And I didn't know that it was going to be part of that song. And then after we got this mix back, the first mix, I sat in my driveway and I was listening to it through my car. And I just started crying. And I was like, I get it. I get it now.
Which is kind of amazing because, so many of the artists we have on the show, they're often like singing songs they wrote or that they collaborated with, closely with their bandmates or a song that they love that they reinterpreted. But what you described right there is not so different from when you talked about having to learn that Pink Floyd song for the tribute band, which is that you're like, oh, I just have to learn this part as it's written, even though this is not out of my wheelhouse, which Charisse is, I have to just say, is an amazing feat to be like, because those are hard parts. And to just be like, okay, I'll do it. And you did it with such gusto. It's really impressive.
Yeah, and I can only imagine what this was like live. That's all I was going to say.
Oh, this is one of my favorite pieces to do live. Like that noise cacophony in the middle is like, it's so awesome. And it's like, you can see about like a third of the audience really gets it and they get really into it. And then like maybe 2/3 or maybe actually another third is just like, what is going on? And then there's another third that is just like, okay, but the ones that love it. And that's the people we love. That's the people we want in the audience.
That's when you know it's good art, right? Is when it's a little polarizing. You don't want to try to please everybody,
We always get an ovation after that section of that song. Mm-hmm. Such a funny, like, oh, okay, that's a funny thing to all applause for, but we're just up there making random noises and stuff. But I was actually the only one that really came up through like the jam band scene and going to see a lot of jam bands and writing in that style. So when we got to that part of that song, it took some convincing of some of the band members because they wanted it written out, they wanted it a certain length, they wanted it, and I'm just like, no, it's not gonna happen. You guys got to drop that. It's gonna be just free form part in there. And I
was one of those. I came from the strict education background. So
so tell us a little bit about that, Charisse. Like, so Scott kind of came up through the jam band scene. What was your background? More like classical or?
Yeah, that is what I studied in college, was classical voice. And I went to St. Cloud State University. And I sang a lot of classical music, and I kind of put my life on the trajectory to do that for a living. I was applying to a whole bunch of different master's programs around the country, and kind of doing master classes with all these big names and just like doing all this really cool stuff, like singing with orchestras. And one of my favorite things is I did like a solo during Carmina Burana with my choir on a choir tour. We also did like a European tour where we sang this piece by Minnesota composer Stephen Paulus called To Be Certain of the Dawn. And it's a really, really heavy piece. If you get a chance to check it out, though, I definitely would recommend it. It's relevant to the climate of today. And so that was what I wanted to do for my whole life. And then I kind of wasn't getting where I wanted to get with the master's degree stuff. And so I was like, you know what? I'm not going to take out all those loans. We're just going to see what happens. We're just going to fly by the seat of our pants. And so that's kind of where I came up. I know Scott has some formal education too, in music theory and whatnot. And our guitarist also does. Connor Allen, he went to McNally Smith. Mm-hmm. Zach Miller was a music teacher, actually. He went to the U of M. And then Nancy also has some formal training as well, too. But I think she went to St. Kate's. I think that's what she said. And then she started touring kind of around the country, playing with like country bands and whatnot, and getting her chops there.
Excellent. Well, all I can say is yes.
It's clear that everybody's got the chops and the talent. And I love Scott that you mentioned that. So, it's important sometimes, even if people don't quite understand the vision, to push a little bit, and especially with that kind of improvisational piece, which I know is there's a lot of tension sometimes with people who have grown up with sheets of music in front of them and letting go of that. And I think that's so wonderful. And it's great to hear people that kind of mix both of those, disciplines.
Yeah, I do like the writing, the fact that we do kind of have a little bit of both. We have a lot of different parts written out and songs that are, we have a song right now that's the working title is Timothy B. Schmidt, but it's an instrumental and it's just all written out. I mean, it's all, and then we have songs like others, like one called Side of the Road that's on the album that's got a whole like 15 minutes middle part that's just goes wherever it goes. So it's definitely I like the combination of the two, having both aspects of it, where you can have bands where you can actually give them sheet music and they'll all read it, and and then you can say, all right, well, this part we're just gonna do whatever we feel. It's really fun, and having such talented musicians as a songwriter is just one of the, just what you dream of, just being able to have such talent. Like Cherie singing anything that I write just sounds amazing.
I think we all would love to have Cherie sing our songs, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks.
I'm one of the luckiest guys, that's for sure.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about that process, because Scott, you write most of the songs for the band, and do you just bring them to the band? Do you bring them to Cherise first? Like, do you have any specific process, or is it different for every song?
It's kind of morphed a little bit. At first, it was me and Cherise that kind of would work on it and then bring it, and now I bring it in different forms of readiness. So there's some stuff that I bring that's just very basic, little section parts here, and then let everybody work it out. And then there's times where I come with everything written out, and there's a little bit, everybody always has freedom to we're really all good about that, so listening to each other and ideas and stuff like that. But it's just recognizing the talent that you work with as a songwriter, and just my songs are so much better when they all have input on them. So it's a good way to do it, for sure.
Wonderful.
Nice. Well, we're about at the halfway mark here of the hour, so I want to make sure that people know where they can hear more of this music, find out more about your live shows, which I'm going to be trying to get on the on the calendar, because that was so amazing. I'd love to see that live. They have a website, jojogreenmusic.com, where you can find out where they're playing, and you can get the digital version through Bandcamp of this record and other music as well. But we were asking them a little bit before the show about getting a physical copy, because I know some of our back catalog regulars like to collect the physical merchandise, where you can get like the high resolution version, the liner notes, you can see who's playing on all the songs and things like that. And they mentioned that if you would like a physical copy, you could just throw $15 and your mailing address at their Venmo account, which is just at JoJo Green Music, and they'd be happy to mail you a copy of this record.
And I should also say that they also have them at all their live shows. So for any of you folks in the Midwest, if you are lucky enough to have JoJo Green come through your neck of the woods, then you should see them live. Because as we mentioned, I've seen them live, and all I can say is, holy cats, you need to see them live. That's all I got to say. And I think it's probably obvious from hearing these songs. But jojogreenmusic.com is where you can find those tour dates as well. And one of the big ones coming up is October 6th. Oktoberfest, and that's not my Minnesota accent. It's actually called Oktoberfest, I guess, to rein in the oak trees there. That's at Harmony Park, and it's a pretty great lineup, especially for those jam band fans.
Yep. We're playing. Frog Leg is playing the day that we're playing, which would be the Friday, and then Mace Simpson and my other band Twine is playing on Saturday down there. So it's a good weekend. And there's a couple other bands with the Brotherhood of
Birds.
Yeah, the Brotherhood.
Oh yeah.
Oh, they're great.
Those guys.
Yeah.
Those guys are fantastic.
Really good. Some friends of mine, and who's the other one that's playing?
Ira Strays and the Haze is playing there too.
Yeah.
And Useful Jenkins.
Oh yeah, Useful Jenkins, of course. They're the
band.
headliners on Saturday, and they definitely are running. This is their little festival that they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Excellent.
Well, you can find out more at jojogreenmusic.com, that show and any other shows that might be coming your way.
And it looks like Chris was wondering about the liner notes too. And yes, you'll get that if you get the CD copy, Chris. So definitely you can Venmo that money over to JoJo Green. And then Connie talked about the album cover, and I agree. And we'll take this comment down so people can see the full cover. It looks like a little wave file there.
or a heartbeat, perhaps?
Or a heartbeat. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about this cover and where the idea came from.
Actually, that both of those that's where it came from. Is we kind of strive to write music that affects like the human experience, and that can come through with a heartbeat that is like the beat. That's the beat that drives us all. And as it shows up on the monitor, it does look like a wave, a sound wave. If you kind of look at a visualizer as well too. So that is where that came from.
Nice. And is this color green now? Is that the JoJo Green? Like, is that?
I haven't like chosen a Pantone or anything like that for our corporate media kit. So
that did not escape me though.
Guide.
That it's green.
Style guide.
So that's the JoJo Green.
Yep.
Which the YouTube, you might not see the real green, so you better get that CD.
Exactly.
So you can see what the
because
official
Crayola
green.
hasn't adopted the JoJo Green color yet.
No.
Part of their array. I also should say with the heartbeat, the wave file. We were talking before we came on the air here. We always like to test the audio before we come on the air and make sure, because every album is mastered differently at different levels. And Tony, you get to see the wave files.
Yes.
When we and you were noticing that they are bigger for this album, right?
Yes, and not in a bad way. Sometimes that can be bad when everything's just squashed. But there's a lot of dynamic range. But it's big and loud in the kind of the best way. And again, I usually, in my experience, I've seen jam bands and I'd go see them and I'd be like, this is the best music ever. And then I'd buy the record and I'd go home and be like, just doesn't capture the live performance. And it's kind of flip flop here where I'm just like, oh my God, the CD sounds so great. I'm going to go out and see music. I have two small kids, so I only go see like if it's a movie, it has to be on the big screen. It's got to be a Marvel movie or something big and epic. And I, it's hard to get me out of the house to go see a movie. But man, I can only imagine if this is what the record sounds like, what it must sound like live. And I think the audio recording of it is doing a lot of justice for the sound of the band.
Yeah,
thank you.
For sure. And again, it's hard to believe this was a debut record. That's all I gotta say.
And recorded remotely. This is completely bonkers.
So weird. But we should get to another song. And this is a song, Scott, that you were referenced earlier, which is Side of the Road.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but you mentioned it kind of can go on forever. This one I see has a finite time. Does this version of the song include any of that improvisation you were talking about?
It's a taste.
There's a little taste. It definitely expanded a lot more after we recorded this version. But yeah, this is definitely this is an interesting one. I like this one.
Any other kind of backstory or insights on this one?
It's just it's that feeling that you get when you're in the backseat of a car in the middle of Nebraska at 4 a.m.
Is that where you are right now?
No, but just that, I don't know if if you all have been on tour and you're in the back seat and you're staring out the window for hours and hours and hours, and all of a sudden in the middle of nowhere somebody is standing on the side of the road and just goes by. They're either hitchhiking and you're 50 miles from a city behind you and you're 50 miles from the city in front of you, and it's just that feeling of what is that person doing, the stripes going by, and just staring out the road and 4 a.m. in the middle of nowhere. That's kind of where this one came from.
Excellent. This is JoJo Green, Side of the Road, here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
the side of the road. Thumbs up, 50 miles to go. Star shine bright, guide my way. If you see me, please don't leave me here by the side of the road. Here on the side of the road. Here on the side of the road. Here on the side of the road, side of the road. My thoughts I try to decode the side of the road. The whole time, right, I'm thinking of you. If you see me, please don't leave me here by the side of the road. Here on the side of the road. Here on the side of the road. Here on the side of the road, on the side of the road. Thumbs up, a long way to go, on the side of the road. My home waits 60 miles away. If you see me, please don't leave me here by the side of the road. Here on the side of the road, on the side of the road. Here on the side of the road, on the side of the road. Here on the side of the road, on the side of the road. Here on the side of the road, on the side of the road.
All right. JoJo Green
Nice.
with Side of the Road from their 2021 release, The Line, their debut album, which we're revisiting today with Scott and Sharice from the band. And folks, digging it, digging it. Chris says Grace Slick, Santana Fish. And he says it's flipping awesome. And Lynn says this is so atmospheric, could be part of a movie soundtrack during an open road driving scene. Yeah, like a Jim Jarmusch kind of vibe, like dark vibes happening.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I do wonder what happens on the side of the road here, and I want to make sure I point out was it Matthew Winters,
Yeah.
who asked if you did you pick the personnel?
I did. I've never picked up a hitchhiker. No,
Okay.
but there's actually a song on my solo album that's coming out in 2 weeks where it's the continuation of that one, of actually the person driving imagining picking up the person.
Ooh,
So yeah, but
Excellent.
no, I never did. What's actually really fun about that one, there's 2 songs on the album, that and Your Lies, that the band actually never played as a band until after we recorded it, because I wrote those in quarantine and then brought it to them as demos, and then we just started building them separately as separate little groups around. But yeah, so the band actually never performed that song together before we recorded it.
Wow.
Wow. And I hear, Scott, that one of the reasons you're in a car right now is not just to add to the vibe of that song, Side of the Road,
Yeah.
but because you're actually going to pick up your CD copies of that new solo record you were just talking about. So if folks are interested in getting a copy and getting the sequel to Side of the Road, how can they do that?
It'll be it's called the Yonky Tonk Band. So.
Yonky Tonk.
That's my solo project.
I don't think anyone's going to have a hard time remembering that. But if you do, we do put our show notes online at Back Catalog Listening Party, and this episode will just be backcataloglisteningparty.com/177. We'll make sure to get a link into that. You'll definitely want to check out the sequel. I know Matthew Winters, who asked that question, said this tune could be in a remake of David Lynch's Lost Highway. And so he may be interested in hearing the conclusion of that story, or maybe just another step in the path.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
That was a fun one. Yeah.
So fun. And again, if you want to get a copy of this album, you can get the physical copy by sending some money to via Venmo to JoJo Green Music. You can also get copies at the live shows if you go to jojogreenmusic.com, including that Oktoberfest in Harmony Park in Minnesota. But we're going to get to one more song before the end of today's show. But before we do, I want to make sure to thank our Patreon supporters, many of whom are joining us today.
Yes.
Because these are the folks that have kept the show going for 177 episodes. And so right around the time you guys were making this record, this is what we were starting to do, which was just hanging out online, listening to music. So, and dreaming of the time when JoJo Green would be on our show. So we want to thank these folks for keeping this party going for 2.5 years. Penny, Ann, Alinda, Bevan, Connie, Vaughn, Alan, Chris, Alex, Becky, Galen, Peggy, Joe, Jim, Beverly, and John, Fred, Tim, Sarah, David, Jocelyn, Court, Matt, Steve, Mark, Homestead, Pick and Parlor, Severin, Lynn, Mary, Many Tracks, Nikki, Joni, David, Sarah, CJ, Sarah C, CJ, Wiley, and don't we have another one?
Oh yes, Stephanie, I'm gonna get you on that.
That banner. And Stephanie came in, our most recent Patreon supporter. And if you want to get in on the action, you can get one of those Founders pint glasses, which are headed your way. And well, it's hard to see because there's a good looking beverage in there.
Yeah, my cider turned into an amber ale. That's when I know that the episode is really good. Is when
gets to the second beverage.
I get to a second beverage. Yes, absolutely. And yeah, you can get
it's driving you to drink, but I don't think.
No, we can. We printed up just a limited amount of these, and we can't wait to send them to all our Patreons so we can have a physical kind of connection every week when we can cheers our glasses together. But if you want to get in on that first run of pint glasses, there's still time. So Back Catalog Listening Party has a Patreon at patreon.com. We'll put a link in the show notes, and we'd love to have you join the party every week. It goes a long way to help us keep the lights on here, the Back Catalog Listening Party, so we can kind of showcase all this music. And one of our missions is to in an industry where really only new stuff gets any credit, but yet there's all this great art that's just sitting on shelves that needs to be heard and unearthed. That's our mission, and you can help that mission by going to patreon.com/backcataloglisteningparty.
That's right. And again, big shout out to all the folks, too, who are tuned in today from all over the world, from Bolivia to South Carolina to right here in Minnesota. You all keep this party going every week, and we couldn't do it without you and without artists like Scott and Charisse being willing to give an hour of their time, whether they're in Wisconsin or whether they're in their car on their way to pick up their CD orders. So we really appreciate them spending the time with us. And we want to squeeze in one more song before we have to go. So we have Check Engine as the last track you picked to feature from the record. Why this track? And is there anything you want to say about this song?
Yeah, so this is one that I wrote, and I don't know, there's just like something about this song that it's very special to me. It actually started out as a country song, and I changed it to a Motown vibe. It kind of came to me in a dream, actually. I was like, oh, wait, that works. Like that works. So I brought it to Scott, and I actually kind of said, I was like, we could do like a really, really ramped up kind of version of like Papa's Got a Brand New Bag, but like make it like crazy. And and it's kind of like that. I mean, it's kind of got like an Ike and Tina vibe to it too. The lyrics were inspired by, I had a coworker several years ago. We were in sales, and her car was always breaking down, and it was, yeah, that's just kind of the rest is history with that one. We always close our show with this one though, just because it's kind of fun,
That's cool. I just want to circle back a little bit, and what part of it came to you in the dream?
Changing the tempo and changing the general feel. I wrote it, like I said, as a country song, and actually we kind of made it so it wasn't so country by taking Scott and having him do a slap bass underneath it. So it kind of felt a little more like country jam. But to me, while it was awesome that way, I was like, how can we make this JoJo Green? Like, how can we JoJo-fy this? And so that's where that came from.
We went through like 3 versions before we came up with this one. So
Yep.
All right. Well, here is the final JoJo Green version of Check Engine. This is JoJo Green on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Hey, what's that rattle under my car? I hope that I don't have to drive very far to see the look on your face when I get down near your place. Oh, honey, I don't think I can make it very far. It's been 10 years now since I've been broke, and I'm always shacked up with this ungrateful bloke. And I work all day just to try to get my pay. Oh, honey, I don't think I can break free from this yoke. Oh, ooh, something's gotta change. I gotta love myself better, but I don't know where to start. I got my money in my pocket. I will fly like a rocket, even if I miss my land among the stars. Was that rattle under my car? I hope my destination isn't far. Well, Lord, I can't break down on that sketchy side of town. Oh, baby, I think I'll pull over at the bar. Oh, something's gotta change. I gotta love myself, but I don't know where to start. I got my money in my pocket. I will fly. Hey, what's that rattle under my car? I hope my destination isn't far. Oh, Lord, I can't break down on that sketchy side of town. Oh, baby, I think I'll pull over at the bar.
Wow. Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks, studio audience.
Okay, a broken down car never sounded or felt so good.
I love Matthew Winter's comment here. He's like, I mean, a band member clearly had to be in the car for this show.
Yeah.
True.
It's perfect.
From check engine to side of the road to miles apart. I think you're
and
right.
there he
Matt.
is in,
Yeah.
in his vehicle right there.
I spend a lot of time in this van, that's for sure.
The JoJo van.
Yeah.
Is that what you guys travel in when you go to shows?
This is one of the main vehicles. Yep.
A lot of inspiration in that van. And you could be like Chris. You can head to Venmo after the show. That's how you could get a physical copy of this show if you want to just throw $15 in your mailing address at their Venmo, JoJo Green Music.
And
They'll send you, yes?
they'll get a second EP with it too.
Whoa.
It's a
Yeah,
bonus.
they will
Oh,
get
Scott's
Bonus.
solo album.
a full-length
Nice.
album, and then our latest EP will
Oh,
for
nice. The
$15. Yeah,
JoJo Green. Cool.
Oh my God! Lynn looks like Lynn is going first. She
Yeah.
says, "Can't wait for the CD to
Yeah.
arrive at my house." Way to go, Lynn!
absolutely.
All
Yeah.
right,
That's
Thanks.
awesome. And it looks like, and again, you can sign up for the updates, the live show updates, because you can also pick up CDs at shows. And of course, it's available in all the digital places as well. JoJo Green, the line. And all I can say is either way, you just need to get the digital files in some format because the production value is so high. It's so kudos to you, Scott, for putting this all together during the pandemic remotely. It just it sounds like it was recorded, as you said, Muscle Shoals. Like, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that.
And it's 5 o'clock. I don't know how that happened, but this was the most fun hour of my whole week. So
yes, once again, it was the antidote. And you know, if you're in Minneapolis right now, the sun is literally shining through our window. It was nothing but dreary rain before this happened. Yeah, Scott's in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And I'm 100% convinced it was this music from JoJo Green here.
And it was the music, and it was all of you for joining us and being part of those good vibrations, because really it's about sharing this space with you and the music. And even though we're not in a room together, this is like really special to be able to share these songs in real time with you. So big thanks to all of you for tuning in. If you liked it, like it on YouTube and direct more bots to these guys. Scott and Charisse and JoJo Green. And you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel because we do this every week. I mean, I can't say the music is like this every week, but it's always great artists revisiting old records. And there's always great conversation and good times. So you can find out what's happening next if you subscribe to the YouTube channel. And of course, find JoJo Green online, jojogreenmusic.com. Charisse and Scott, thank you. This was
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
thank you guys. Yeah, thanks for having us on today.
So much fun.
This has been wonderful, and we're so excited. I know you've got a bunch of new fans already, and if you like Ellen said, if you like this, please share it, because that means more people are going to find JoJo Green's music, and that's going to make the world a better place. That's why we do this. Cheers to you. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Cheers.
And we'll see you next week here.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
On the Back Catalog Listening Party.